Hello. So as you can see, this recording focuses on the supply curve and what's known as short and long run production. So if we look at the supply curve, so this is basically focused on how much a business would supply relative to price. And as you can see, there's this relationship that as the price goes up, a business is willing to supply more of something. So for instance, if you put that into an event management context, if your the price for your particular kind of event that you offer starts rising, the tickets prices can go up for some reason, you're likely to want to produce more of it. But there's the question at the bottom, just how much should a business supply? And, as you've probably already guessed, it's maybe not quite as straightforward as this because there are other factors that you'll need to take into account. So we'll have a look at some of these. So first of all, there's this idea of short and long run production. So you've got a very successful event management business. People are starting to want to pay more to go to these events. So you want to put on more events, but you've got some obstacles in the way. So it might take you time to find new venues or even purchase venues if you have run out of venue capacity. So that might be one factor. Another thing is you may actually, in order to actually sell more tickets and get more people to your events, you might need to hire more staff. Now, sometimes you can do that quite quickly, but it might take you time. So there is a bit of a time lag before you can do certain things. And we talk about the short term, and this is, as it says there, a period of time when some or all of the factors of production cannot be adjusted. So, for example, typically an event manager might not be able to open a new venue very quickly because you might have to purchase it or hire it, as I've described above. So in the short term, you probably can't do that. But what you might be able to do is if you use agency staff, you might be able to actually increase your staffing levels quite quickly, and that's something that you could possibly achieve in the short term, maybe. Then in the long term, this is a period of time over which all factors of production can be adjusted. So if you think about what we mean by factors of production in an event context, might be things like the venue, the food and drink you serve, the staff running the events, all of those kinds of things. Over a longer period of time, you can adjust these things. You can go and buy the new venues, etc. You can find new sites to host your events. So one of the things that we're going to focus on a bit more in the next recording is measuring short-term costs. And these can be divided between fixed costs, variable costs, and total costs. So if we look at a particular given output, as the output goes up, you can see in the table on the right, excuse me, that fixed costs don't actually change. So these might be things like your building rents for your venue. They could be your business rates. But no matter how many tickets you sell, those are not going to change. So they won't vary with the output, and the output here is the number of tickets you might sell for an event. On the other hand, the variable costs, these can be adjusted over the short term, and you might adjust these relative to the number of tickets that you sell, i.e. your output. So for example, if you sell a lot more tickets for an event in a venue and you might need more bar staff, you can perhaps bring in extra staff. You can offer people some extra shifts to cover that. So these are variable costs. You can vary these relative to the output level. And the total costs are basically the sum of the fixed costs and the variable costs. So these tend to track the variable costs, basically, because the fixed costs are the same, and it's actually the fixed costs of the variable costs. So as the variable cost goes up, so does the total cost. So if you're thinking about a hotel venue that does a mixture of corporate and social events, so maybe they're holding business meetings most of the week, and in the weekend they're maybe providing weddings or parties venues. So they have a number of fixed costs, which you can see over on the left there. So that might be their bedrooms. They might have leisure facilities like a swimming pool. They've got dining facilities. They might have a room that's available to host weddings in, and they might have conferencing rooms. So these are their fixed costs. So they have those costs whether or not they actually have people in using those facilities. On the other hand, they've got variable costs on the right-hand side there. So you can see, for instance, this might be the food. And if you've not got so many people staying at your hotel that week, maybe you have got a low week of corporate bookings, well, then you don't need to order in so much food. Similarly with the drinks. And then there's staffing as well. So, you some of your staff costs might be relatively fixed, but you're likely to have some variable costs where you can actually bring people in to do more shifts and, when they're needed to cover the capacity. So basically, if we're looking in the long run, all the inputs can be varied, because you could buy a new hotel if your business is going well and you want to offer more weddings, you want to offer more conferencing facilities, you could hire a new venue, etc. What we're going to focus on next is particularly the short run costs in the next recording.